Thank you. Just make your way forward to a table as you get your refreshments. Thank you. Well, welcome to all of you, and welcome to the many regional elected officials here this morning. I'm John Stride. I'm the president of City Club of Portland, and we are quite thrilled to have you all with us for this annual State of the Region address. Before we begin, please just take a moment and silence your cell phones. City Club is proud to host nonpartisan public forums, debates, and research to help Portlanders make informed decisions around elections and public policy. City Club is committed to providing space for people to gather and engage in civil dialogue to enhance respectful discussions and positive change. It's the members of City Club that make it work. They provide the ideas, lead conversations, conduct research, and plan programs such as this that address issues important to our local community. To support our mission and participate directly in City Club's work, become a member today. If you want to do so, visit pdxcityclub.org/membership. And if you join today, we'll take $40 off your membership dues. Just use the discount code NEW40. That's capital N, capital E, capital W, 40. We hope we get some new members from this meeting today. Many people are responsible for developing today's program. A special thanks goes to Robin Denberg and Bobby Reagan from the City Club Program Committee, who are producing this event. Thanks also to Kayla Kennett, the City Club's Director of Communication and Engagement, for her hard work in bringing all details together. And to Metro staff, Kelly Williams-Brown, Kathy Love, Nick Christensen, Andrea Chilentano, along with Jamie Inglis and the Zoo event team. We also want to thank our season sponsors, AARP Oregon and Fight Against Sex Trafficking, for their generous support. They owe them an applause. Thank you. Now, I ask you to mark your calendars for what we think is a very exciting upcoming event for City Club. We are hosting on July 25th at noon at the University Place Convention Center a discussion with Attorney General Dan Rayfield and former Supreme Court Justice Tom Balmer, where they'll discuss the many lawsuits that the Oregon Attorney General has joined among other attorneys general around the country. Recall that our own Attorney General was the lead counsel for the challenge to the unilateral imposition of tariffs by this administration. We hope you'll mark your calendars and attend. Now to today's program. For those who are not familiar, Metro is a nonpartisan elected regional government with a president and 6 councilors elected via districts located in Clackamas, Multnomah, and Washington counties. It was created about 40 years ago, becoming the nation's only elected regional government. Serving more than 1.7 million Oregonians, it includes 24 cities and spans from the Columbia River to the north to the Willamette River near Wilsonville in the south, from Forest Grove to Troutdale. Metro leads regional planning efforts and is particularly engaged with housing, land use, recycling, and transportation issues. It also oversees 18,000 acres of parks and natural areas, as well as visitor venues like the Zoo, Convention Center, Expo Center, and Portland Center for the Arts. Metro Council President Lynn Peterson has led the regional government since 2019. After serving in a variety of elected leadership positions around the region. This includes as chair of the Clackamas County Commission, and before that, on the Lake Oswego City Council. She has served as secretary of the Washington State Department of Transportation for Governor Inslee, and as senior transportation policy advisor to Oregon Governor John Kitzhaber. Today's program, Metro President Lynn Peterson will give her remarks, followed by a conversation with today's moderator, Dana Haynes. Dana has covered local government and politics for decades, most recently as the editor-in-chief of the Portland Tribune. He has also been a reporter and editor in Salem and in several Portland suburban communities. Dana previously worked as a communications director for Portland Community College and for the mayor of Portland. He is also the author of 13 mystery and thriller novels, and I just recently learned a former City Club member, and I hope a future one. We want to thank those of you who have submitted questions as you register for this program. Dana has been given all of your questions and has incorporated many of them into your themes into his questions. Now, please join me in welcoming Metro Council President Lynn Peterson.
Good morning, everyone. It is so good to see you all. Thank you for joining us at the 2025 State of the Region. I want to recognize the following elected leaders that have joined us today. There are a lot of you, so we're going to do this in groups. Mayors of the region, will you please stand? Mayor Wilson is here, Mayor Pace, Stovall, thank you. City councilors who are here from all over the region, please stand. There you are. Did you see that? They kind of grouped together there. And then county commissioners. Could you please rise and be recognized? I would ask the state legislators to stand, but I think they're busy. It's a big day in Salem, and I think they're making progress, so it's good to hear. I also want to thank the City Club of Portland for co-hosting. Thank you to Dana Haynes for moderating. And thank you, as always, to Metro Councilors Gonzalez, Huang, Lewis, Nolan, Rosenthal, and Deputy President Simpson. I really appreciate this council and their trust in me and in each other, so a round of applause for them. Today, we are obviously at the Oregon Zoo, which is a treasure of this region and an excellent host. If you haven't partaken, they do a good job. There have been some very good state of the fill-in-the-blank events this year, but no one else has an international celebrity baby elephant. Tulatoo has brought such joy to so many. Her mother, Rose Two, the herd itself, and the zookeepers who are raising her deserve a round of applause. On a different note, if you know me, I like to cut to the chase. So what's the state of our region? If I'm being diplomatic, I could call it non-ideal. If I'm being frank, it is in critical condition. Since the last State of the Region, we have had a drumbeat of stories about an economic doom loop. We have seen the number of unsheltered homeless rise despite tireless efforts from our counties and cities. Cities and counties and the region face large budget deficits and have made incredibly difficult decisions. Everyone in this room knows we are operating in unfamiliar and frightening territory. I frequently use the word headwinds, but at this time it feels like a wind storm. Governments face a crisis of credibility, and we're not alone. Americans have lost faith in the institutions that were once pillars of our shared lives. This is not the moment for us as Metro or any local, state, or national government to pat ourselves on the back or take a victory lap. It's time for clarity, and it's time for urgency, and it's time to think carefully and then act decisively. We need to step away from status quo and make big, audacious plans. And we do not have years, Portland. We do not have years to plan and perfect them to the ultimate 100% perfect. The 1.7 million people we serve need us now. When I say us, I don't just mean Metro. I mean you, the people in this room. Metro's work is not done alone. It happens in partnership with 24 cities, 3 counties, the governor and state legislature. It happens across economic sectors and industry, and it happens with nonprofits, community organizations, and more. As you all know, I'm an engineer and a planner, and one of the things I appreciate most about Metro is that it is oriented toward the future. For me, the concept of future is not scary. In fact, it's quite comforting. It is a lighthouse that can guide us out of the roughest seas and to a destination. I'll talk soon about how together we will do everything in our power to help move this region from a very difficult present moment into a shared future. But first, I want to acknowledge many bright spots over the past year. We are now on track with our implementation partners to deliver more than 5,600 units through the Affordable Housing Bond Measure. That's 140% of the promised 3,900 units that voters approved in 2018. Last year alone, we celebrated the grand opening of 8 new affordable housing communities and broke ground on 9 more. Many of those projects also received Metro's transit-oriented development grants and are located so that residents have easy access to reliable, safe public transit. With the support of housing service funding, we've connected more than 8,000 households with the housing and services they need through our implementation partners. This program is building major capacity in places that used to have almost none, including the first ever year-round emergency shelters in Hillsborough, Mayor Pays, Beaverton, and Clackamas County. Yay. We didn't have these kind of resources when I was chair of Clackamas County. Through the 2019 Parks and Nature Bond, we've been able to acquire more than 1,500 acres of natural areas this year, including 533 acres of the former Eagle Creek Golf Course and surrounding land next to the Clackamas River. That's bringing our total acreage in the region over 20,000 acres that we are managing. Metro's restoration work will have a tremendous impact on the river's water quality, temperature, and the surrounding habitats. Funding from the bond's local share program helped Oregon State University and the Trust for Public Lands acquire more than 3,000 acres in the Tualatin Mountains. And in April, the Metro Council, this one's close to my heart, voted yes on the I-5 Rose Quarter project, our step in supporting what would be the nation's largest restorative justice public works project. We also took another step forward in expanding the urban growth boundary to include lands in Sherwood, thanks to Mayor Rosner's work with us, with land ready to develop as soon as possible to address our region's housing shortage. We also adopted the Regional Systems Facility Plan for waste, a 20-year plan to invest in infrastructure that everyone uses and relies on. It will keep an additional 100,000 tons of waste out of landfills each year and ensure that the system is safe and functional in the event of a natural disaster. And in April, inspired by the creativity and urgency Mayor Wilson has brought to Portland's homelessness crisis, Metro directly allocated $15 million to support the city's innovative shelter plans. And in May, we were able to give more than $26 million in bond interest proceeds to help our implementation partners keep their supportive housing service projects on track amidst rising costs and economic uncertainty. Those are the big things. Metro works at a very large system scale, but we also work on a human scale, and I'd like to mention some of those as well. The Regional Illegal Dump Program Patrol cleaned up 632 tons of garbage from roadways and natural areas this year. A modern diesel-electric locomotive weighs 200 tons. So roughly, they picked up 3 big locomotives. Yeah, it's a lot of trash. And if you spot them, always feel free to give them a call. If you spot any trash, always feel free to give them a call at 503-234-3000. That jingle from the last 30 years will keep going through my brain until I die. You all know it, don't you? Yeah, we need to revive it. We supported 23 projects through our placemaking grants, including arts-based support club for teens impacted by deportation, a medicine gathering for the Native community and its allies in Gresham, and a home away from home for Ukrainian refugees in Hillsborough. Already this summer, the Parks and Nature staff have given away more than 3,500 life jackets, including at the Rose Festival Dragon Boat Races and the Impalas Club Father's Day Barbecue at Blue Lake Regional Park. You will find our staff this Saturday at the Good in the Hood Music and Food Festival if you need a life jacket. Also, 2 geese found unlikely cross-species love at the Blue Lake Regional Park and made national news. And of course, the Oregon Zoo welcomed Tulitu, who became an overnight international celebrity and served as Grand Marshal of this year's Grand Floral Parade. When I got the call, we did have a conversation about, should a baby elephant be leading a parade? And then it became clear it was a float. It took me a minute. When we decided to host this at the zoo, Bobby from City Club of Portland specifically asked whether there would be a zoo announcement, and I do have 2. The Oregon Zoo gained a group of VIJFs, very important jawless fish, last week. 25 Pacific lamprey arrived from nearby Willamette Falls. The zoo lamprey are part of a tribal-led effort that collects the fish downriver and moves them to areas above the dams where they used to live. This group of 25 will stay at the zoo through the winter and be transported above the Detroit Dam on the North Santiam River once they're ready to spawn. The Oregon Zoo's conservation efforts have an enormous impact throughout the region, the state, and across the globe. I can also announce that this year, 9 endangered California condor chicks were hatched at the Johnson Center for Wildlife Conservation Center in Clackamas County. All of this would not have happened except for Metro staff. Could I have everyone who works for Metro please stand up? Your work is meaningful, it is valuable, and it improves the lives of not just humans and animals, but this land across the region, from the Tuolumne to the Sandy River, so we all thank you. All right, now can I have everyone who works with Metro at another government agency, a community-based organization, or a business leader, please stand up. Go ahead. Come on, Sahan, lead the way. These accomplishments are also yours. While we sometimes lead the way, often we are an agency that is just here to help make your ideas, efforts, and projects a reality. So thank you. Even in this difficult moment, there's lots we should celebrate and be proud of. But I do have another piece of news. Over the last 2 years, we, as the Metro Council, considered taking supportive housing services back to the ballot with a reform package for voters. We thought it could restructure the program, lower the tax rate, and extend the program to include and incentivize building more affordable housing. I wish I could announce today that it will be on the November ballot. Following yesterday's deliberation with Council, I can announce it will not. What we heard from voters is clear. They need to see more results before they are willing to consider extending it. They want accountability and transparency. Metro, the counties, cities, and providers will pursue reforms. and we will deliver them. There are real successes here. There has been hard work and legitimate wins. But that's not what was on the ballot in 2020. Voters did not approve a collection of programs with varying effectiveness. They asked for something that meets the region's most urgent need. This work isn't easy, it's not simple, but we do need a system that works from Sherwood to Troutdale and can be deeply personalized to everyone who needs it and deserves the help. Here's the problem, and it's a pretty simple math problem. In the words of my friend Sahan McKelvey, who's here today, the Director of Advocacy and Engagement at Self-Enhancement, Inc., right now we have a program where 3 plus 3 plus 3 is equaling 6, when it should equal 9. The whole is adding up to less than the sum of its parts. If we do it right, 3 plus 3 plus 3 could equal 12. Those reforms that do not need to go to the ballot are already underway. Here I want to acknowledge everyone who has served on the President's Work Group, which began this January and concluded its work this last week. I want to thank Commissioner West from Clackamas County, who was an absolute star in helping prepare for each meeting and seeing different perspectives as the co-chair. I want to thank Commissioner Singleton's commitment to moving change forward in Multnomah County with her commission, and it is so refreshing. Thank you. There is so much I could share from the work we did in that work group, but one more thing I'll share from that last work group is that there was another wise thought from my friend Sahan.
The only way we get to a place where our multiple programs roll up into an effective system where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts is regional stakeholders, regional experts, regional electeds, making regional decisions on how to inform regional implementation and regional action to get regional results. We need to ensure that we are always putting ourselves in a position to make the best possible decisions for the entire region. And if we don't, we're not maximizing the opportunity that we have.
Well said. Thank you. We cannot squander this opportunity. We must maximize it. We cannot take our foot off the accelerator, even though we're not going to the ballot. And we won't. Our region needs it, our communities need it, and most of all, the thousands of people who are suffering each night they spend on the streets deserve the safety and dignity of a better life. It is my commitment to move as quickly as we can with our partners over the next 2 years so this conversation has changed and there are actual results that can be visibly seen on the streets of this region. But while housing and homelessness are the biggest issue today, we must not lose sight of the future, the work we as an agency do to shape it. My own story at Metro began in 1995 when I was an entry-level planner working on transportation modeling, not this, mathematics, for the 2040 growth concept, a 50-year plan for our region. I had the opportunity to work under and learn from John Fregonese. He taught me to trust the people and the process of this region. It has been immensely gratifying to see so much of what we planned come to fruition, and now it is time for the next phase. Last week, the Metro Council appointed 33 people to a new Future Vision Commission. So much has changed since 1995, and we need to start building a new lighthouse as soon as possible, one that will orient and guide us as we move through rough waters toward where we are going together. That begins with values shaping work that will happen in that body. When you are planning 50 years into the future, you put on not only your planner and engineer hat, but also your artist hat, your Imagineer hat, and your optimist hat. We're not creating a plan for this fiscal year. We're creating an affirmative plan for what we want our region to be when most of us in this room will be gone. And I want to thank Councilor Gonzalez for leading that effort as we look to the future. Thank you, Councilor. But that's not all. We are working on an ambitious plan to convert the Expo Center into something that would be the first of its kind in the nation, a venue for sports tourism visitors. In 2024, sports tourism accounted for $47.1 billion in direct spending nationally, with a total economic impact of $114.4 billion. I'd love to see some of that start flowing our way. It would also be a community facility serving local amateur, professional, and youth athletes, potentially in partnerships with organizations such as the Winterhawks. But most importantly, the Expo future would speak to the site's historic significance to multiple communities. The Japanese Americans who were held there during World War II before their internment. The Vanport community that was adjacent before the terrible flood of 1948. And land stewardship, connection, and reconnection of indigenous communities to the water on a site that for thousands of years served as a gathering place. So much of what Metro does is economic development. Housing, safe transportation, improving community corridors, connecting businesses to nonprofits to local government. This is what sets the regional table for success. We are now working on a coordinated economic development strategy led by Deputy Council President Simpson, with Councilors Gonzalez and Lewis. Meanwhile, Councilor Wong is spearheading the social innovation work, which pairs resources to regional community needs, such as local resiliency hubs. So we've got a lot of exciting work ahead of us. Planning work can sometimes feel intangible. Well, not to me. I'm a planner. But to a normal person, what might or might not happen in 25 years is less real than what might or might not happen next week. As agencies, it's easy to get distracted by the tyranny of the urgent. So I'll close by sharing some work Metro staff conducted a few weeks ago. I hope, as you watch it, you see why we must keep the future firmly in sight, why we must meet the needs of the moment and never stop moving forward toward the place we want to be.
Houses for people to live in, because there's a lot of people who don't have houses.
What I want the future to look like is kind of a cyber city. They could make mansions less expensive so then the poor people could get them.
I feel like we shouldn't waste money on things like designing new cars. We should spend it on helping animals that need homes and helping protect nature, because if we ruin nature now, what about the people in the future? They might not get to see nature. They might not get to see it the same way we do.
They could use bicycles, horses, they could use electric cars. I feel like there should be no gasoline. Gasoline hurts the environment. What I want it to be is almost getting around faster than cars can.
Probably by teleporting. If I have kids, I want to live in a neighborhood with other kids for them to play with.
Kind of imagine myself living in just a simple house, not too big, not too small. A nice neighborhood where the community is helping out each other.
Probably electricians, because electricity will probably be used a lot more than it already is now. I gotta say some sort of astronaut explorer, because I assume that by that time we have to explore space.
At the zoo.
One main thing that I think about is all the homeless people. Just seeing them makes me really sad, and I wish that all of them could have a home and feel safe and loved.
I want it to be full of natural spaces, parks, and animals, and not just one zoo, but lots of small zoo-like areas for animals to be able to go.
Maybe the future would be they don't cut down trees for lumber anymore.
Just
a kind place where everyone feels welcome. In 2025, like there's still things that I think that our world needs to work on. Just treat everyone with the respect they deserve and they need to feel wanted and needed.
So is this on? Now is this on?
No, is it?
Testing, testing? Yes. Quickly, something I didn't know that we had in common. When I started covering Metro in the Mike Burton era, I used to get this call from a guy named John Friganesi who would say, you want to get together and get some coffee and I can talk to you about land use? You want to go grab a cup of coffee and I can talk to you about urban corridors? And he and I drank many a cup of coffee while he explained to a rather uninformed young reporter what the hell the plan was. So, didn't know we had that in common.
He was my mentor in so many different ways. And what John brought to Metro was the excitement about the future, I think, rather than looking back, looking forward, right? Because we were protecting the Oregon Land Use Planning Program. And the question was, yeah, but what does that look like? And what is the pragmatic part of that? And how do you bring jobs to the region? And how do you just push on the questions? And I saw him do it all over the nation, bringing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people together, whether it was Salt Lake City, Dallas, Austin, Chicago. You get people in a room and they come to a conclusion at tables like this, and you end up almost with similar futures when you mix people together. And that's what I meant about trust the process and the people. The people know what they want.
They generally do.
Don't get ahead of them.
For years and years, I've been talking about Metro, and I always have this paragraph I use to explain the primary responsibilities of Metro, and one thing I never write down is climate change. Climate change isn't written in there as this is your wheelhouse and nobody else's. But climate change has to do with every single bit of planning you guys do, and every other agency does too. What specifically does Metro do to lead climate change or climate resilience efforts in the region that we don't often think of?
Yeah, well, it starts out with the basics of the actual 2040 growth concept and how every city and county changed their zoning to make for high-density corridors that would be usable by transit users, right? You need to have a lot of locations right on the transit line in order for people to feel the transit is going to work for them. So that was really I think the core of our work going forward for many, many years. Over time, we have the climate strategies plan that is required by state law, but we started it before it was required, and then all the other MPOs had to follow suit. It really comes down to how we live each day in our place, but it also comes down to what car we purchase and what types of buildings we build. So we're looking at all of that with our partners because we don't implement a lot of that. The cities and counties do, and hats off to them because I've been there, and it's hard work. It's very hard work.
I have to tell you that I used to work for Portland Community College, and Earl Blumenauer once cornered me and yelled at me for not putting Rock Creek campus on a high important corridor like that. And I told him his point was well made, but I was in junior high when that decision was made. Earl gave me a pass on that one. The City of Portland races are being decided now by ranked choice voting, and starting next year, so will Multnomah County races. Would you endorse ranked choice voting for Metro elections in the future? And if not, why not?
Interesting question. I think we should see how it plays out.
That's a fair enough answer. I like succinct answers. It takes less writing. When Metro, I want to talk a little bit about the supportive housing services and the how. Because when that all came up, there were some people who said, well, Metro should get involved. The cities and the counties aren't getting the job done. And others said, whoa, 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 this is mission creep. This is not in your lane. Can you talk us a little bit about the process by which you and the council got to yes on taking on an issue that traditionally was not Metro's issue?
I think there was a lot of soul searching. I'm looking at some of the staff in the room. There's a lot of soul searching. It definitely was a step slightly outside because we had already just in 2018 passed the affordable housing bond measure for $652.8 million. And we've had huge success with that with our implementation partners. That was key to getting 10% of what we actually need for this region in terms of affordable and low-income housing. So it was obviously not too much of a mission creep, but we'd never been in the health and human services side of things before. And coming from the county side, I could see why there was a request to regionalize, because when I was on Clackamas County Commission, we were talking with Multnomah County and Washington County about how we work together, because obviously borders on this don't mean anything to somebody. You could have grown up in Oregon City, now live in southeast Portland, and not really see the border, and okay, which county am I gonna actually go get services from? But the problem was always a lack of money and resources and not wanting to give up anything to get anything. It was a real tough conversation. So I saw this as an opportunity to jump that hurdle and get folks working as a region. I think how this measure started is really important because it is why we need to go back and reform it. It started as basically Metro's flow-through money to the counties. And I think what we're finding now is that internally in the counties, Clackamas and Washington were able to grow almost new programs because they did not have much money to start out with. In Multnomah County, and I think they would agree, they have programs that now need to be created into a system and now need to be put into a regional system. So we're kind of growing all of that at the same time. So I think it's been an evolution, and I'm glad that we're in a continuous learning environment. I wish it could have been faster.
I have a question for you that has been a mystery for me for a long, long time. I first started covering Metro in the 90s. Katie King, my wife and I live downtown in an apartment complex that's got 300 units. And if I went door to door to my neighbors and said, what is Metro and what does it do? I would get shocked if I got 2 right answers. Despite the depth and breadth of what Metro does, it's largely unknown by the very people it serves. How come? Why is that?
It's not. Your city government is what you know the best, right? And as you go up the ladder towards the federal government, people know less and less because it's harder to know your local representative. It's pretty easy outside of the city of Portland, I'm going to say, to know your mayor. It's pretty easy to know your city councilors. It's really quite easy most of the time to know even the chair of your county. But that one level up starts to lose that local connection, and we are not on the ground in the same implementation way that a city councilor is, right? So I think that's part of it. And then being the only one of our kind that's elected regionally. Our closest sister organization is in Minneapolis, St. Paul. They have a similar breadth, a similar problem of who knows what they are, but they're actually appointed by the governor. So during COVID, I called the president of that board, who I actually served with while I was Washington Department of Transportation Secretary. He was Minnesota DOT Secretary. And I said, how are you being utilized in this emergency? What do I need to think of that I'm not thinking about? And he's like, well, we're appointed by the governor, so the governor thinks that we're just a direct output of state government. So they're leaning on us, where we were trying to jump up and down and say, but what about us? So it was an interesting difference between us.
I'm going to put you on the spot here because we're at the the Oregon Zoo, and we have a brand new baby elephant. What is the one animal not here in this menagerie that you adore that you'd like to see at your zoo?
An Alaskan Malamute.
That was amazing. That was a really good question.
No, those are the dogs we have. We already have wolves, but I think it's not an animal that we don't already have, but it was brought to my attention that we have work to do in the United States to be able to adopt polar bear cubs from Canada that are orphaned. We are not letting them into the United States. So what I would love to do is be able to break that stranglehold and be able to have the ability to bring orphaned polar bears into the United States from Canada.
Did somebody put a tariff on them? Sorry, couldn't. She lobbed that one.
I did.
You talked about the Expo Center. Oh, before I go on, I just got to say, the one animal that I'm absolutely frightened of is lamprey. And so I loved the slide. They freak the heck out of me. I just had to say that.
JVIF.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to have trauma over that one for the rest of the month. So you talked about the Expo Center, but we saw quite recently the creation of a coalition of professional sports teams and professional arts groups coming together to support tourism, the economy, and downtown Portland. They call themselves the We Play for Portland Coalition. It includes the Trailblazers and the Timbers, but also the Oregon Ballet Theater and Oregon Symphony. Metro, as everybody I think here knows, operates some very large venues that are an important part of this. Do you agree with the first basic concept of this new coalition that the greater Portland region cannot thrive without a more robust atmosphere for big venue, big ticket, spectator-driven events? And what, if anything, can Metro do differently in the future to push that to make it happen?
Hell yes, I support that. No question. I think one of the things we're doing is we're lending our voice to the support, whether it's in the legislature, when it comes to working with the coalition itself and advancing Expo, building on this sports activity and also at the same time building up our arts and culture venues. They have long been needing much more attention. And so we're very happy that the attention is now being paid. I think this is one of the ways out of this economic issue that we have right now. I think if we show that we're committed to a lifestyle, that we're committed to the arts, we can bring people back. We can keep them here. But we need to start showing some commitment. And if I may take it just a little bit further, Oregon needs to start investing in itself. We cannot run away from these investments anymore. We did have a time where we were investing in ourselves, and that's when we were prospering. And we have gotten away from that. We feel that we need the perfect from every single person's separate perspective. And I don't know how many folks in this room know that we have the most nonprofits per capita in the entire United States in the state. That's too many. If we have to serve the perfect for every nonprofit, every advocacy organization, we will never make a decision. We need to start figuring out and getting clarity, as I said, what is it we're heading for, and make sure that we leave no one behind and that we get the best option we can. But 80% of amazing is really good. Move forward.
Staying on that topic just for... Stay there for just 1 second, because I talked to a lot of arts organizations, and they say that the taking use of the Portland Five is not inexpensive. Those are expensive venues from the perspective of the arts organizations. Do you hear that from them as well? And
yeah, there's some, those are City of Portland owned assets that we maintain and operate. So there's a clear dividing line there. And there are some literally underlying issues with the P5, right? We have part of the land that the actual building sits on is on an easement with an escalating lease that we have to cover the costs with by those that perform there, because we don't raise money. We have a very tiny general fund at Metro. It's a very tiny property tax that runs Metro. There is no money to cover those additional costs on an escalating lease. So these are the types of things the structural problems that we need to solve in order to move forward.
I did not realize that. That was an interesting, good answer. I'm going to move to Washington County for a second. Washington County is the hub of Oregon's high-tech chip-making companies. The governor and the legislature would love to see that expanded. The downside of high-tech is that there's some pollution involved and they suck up a lot of water. Washington County is some of the most important significant natural resources in the region, and local significant natural resources programming is a requirement under Oregon statewide land use goals. This feels to me like a bit of a push-pull from our friends in Salem. How worried are you personally, or how happy are you personally, about finding the Goldilocks spot between expanding Washington County's high-tech and expanding Washington County's green spaces?
I don't know how you expand Washington County's green spaces because they're there.
You purchase a lot of green spaces.
Well, protecting them. Obviously, you can do both. And, I think up front say this was a hard topic for the Metro Council itself. There were split opinions on this. I think the majority of the council felt like this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the state of Oregon. And we were willing to say, yes, let's consider it, but if they don't come, then let's put the land back, right? Let's not move forward with that. Let's have a better conversation about where and how to grow next. But I think there's probably in the next, 5 years, a conversation that needs to be had about where and how we grow in terms of that kind of development. Being from Clackamas County, I have to put it on the table. There's a lot of land in Clackamas County. It's more expensive to build on because it's all on lava rock. It's not tilled soil, right, farmland. So while it's more expensive, it doesn't mean that it should not be off the table for development. It means that it should be on because it's inside the urban growth boundary, and it would make it so 67% of the Clackamas County residents that get up in the morning and go to another county for work are not on our transportation system in the way they are now. It is taking them an hour and a half or more to get to work in these other counties. We need jobs. We need jobs in every part of the region, including Gresham. We need more jobs on the east side in order to make this region work better.
When I was the editor of the Lake Oswego Review in the 90s, I advocated for turning the Stafford Triangle into industrial land. I was not a popular editor. I'm just going to say that.
I believe I have an op-ed that says don't do Stafford. Yeah.
One of the projects that I've been looking at and I think is really exciting is the Willamette Cove. It's a rehab, a big, bold, exciting project. It's also one of the most toxic sites in the state with a century plus of industrial waste. And a recent soil studies indicated the contamination is deeper than expected. What's the timeline for turning that from the toxic no-go zone it is today into a real gem of riverside green space?
There are still outstanding decisions that need to be made on this, but what I can tell you is that the council has, through resolution, dedicated $20 million to the cleanup. And the port is also on the line for their portion of the cleanup because we bought it from them with that understanding. So money is set aside so that when the decisions are finally made of how deep, how much, where does it go, we can pull the trigger on it and give the neighborhood back an amazing park that is safe. Because people are going down there, and when we go down there as Metro staff and Metro counselors, we're told to wash our boots off before we go home.
Yeah,
so
there's a century of methyl ethyl bad stuff in that soil, yeah.
Yeah. So I can't give you an exact date, but when those decisions come down, we are ready to go.
That's what I'm excited about. We had, our City Club had asked for audience questions, and we got some tremendous ones. I want to pick up a couple of those if I could. And one of them is this. Community-led redevelopment is already underway along the MLK corridor with projects like the Seoul District Business Association. As Metro considers the future of the Expo Center, which you spoke of, and other regional sites, how can existing efforts be intentionally included in shared infrastructure planning and funding opportunities? And this question does come from the Seoul District Business Association.
We have intentionally worked with places that were, well, I'm going to take that back. We have unintentionally worked with places on the map of the 2040 growth concept that were not in 1995 considered centers, right? Our whole growth plan was based on centers and downtowns and corridors, the corridors that connect the centers. Albina Vision Trust's vision was not on the map in 1995. The Jade District on 82nd was not on the map. But when we look to the future, we're going to have to rethink what does a center look like and what does the investment look like. And we've already started down that path by putting money into the parks bond measure that passed in 2019 for $475 million. We've put a portion of that aside in order to look at large-scale developments and their relationship to parks and restoring habitat. And so we have a lot of good projects that have come out of that, like the Tualatin Mountains purchase. Well, that was the local share. But Albina Vision Trust is one of those partners, and we're looking for more.
I'm going to set up the premise of the next question really quickly because not everybody knows the term of the critical energy infrastructure hub, but the hub is a 6-mile stretch of industrial development along the west side of the Willamette River. More than 90% of the liquid fuel in Oregon is stored there, and the hub is built before current understanding of tectonics, and it's on bad soil that will not handle another earthquake. So the question was, does Metro have a role in the long-term removal or relocation of the critical energy hub? The city and the county clearly do. Does Metro play a role in this?
As I said earlier, we usually get on board with projects, right, that are of critical importance in some way, whether that's lending our voice to going down to the state legislature or the federal government, but we don't have a specific role. I'm not even, maybe in rezoning in the future, but I don't even doubt that. But I think that we would be supportive, having been part of the aftermath of natural disasters in Washington State. This is one of my personal top priority projects for this region. If the big one was to hit, it would really hurt this region's recovery ability, and a lot of lives could be lost. So I think we need to make it a top priority.
This one comes from somebody who wants to hear a yes from you. The Washington Park and Zoo Railway has been a regional treasure since 1958, with tracks through Washington Park from the Oregon Zoo to the International Rose Garden. Metro closed the long route in 2013 for repairs and upgrades. Since then, the community's gathered more than 44,000 signatures to support bringing it back to the long run, successfully got on a National Register of Historic Places, created a 501c3 to support fundraising, and has paid for its own engineering study of what it would cost. Do you support the public-private partnership between Metro, Friends of the Washington Park Zoo Railway, and local business sponsors to bring this national historic place and regional treasure back to its full operation between the Oregon Zoo and the International Rose Garden?
Yes, and we've established a committee that Councilor Lewis heads with all of those folks to see what the path forward is.
Any sort of timeline?
The committee has not spoken.
We have a question from a Tigard City Councilor, whom I believe is here in the room. Metro recently adopted solid waste fees for fiscal year 2025-26, which include a 2.98% increase in the regional system fee and a 7.49% increase in the solid waste fee. And in doing so, Metro acknowledged that this puts pressure on the local communities. Here's the question from our Tigard City Councilor. For the benefit of the ratepayers I represent in Tigard, could you please clearly articulate what tangible improvements or benefits they could expect to see as a result of this fee increase?
The cost of operations have been going up dramatically over the last several years for our transfer stations, and we made sure that during COVID, we did not raise rates. That put us, and we used our reserves to cover the cost of keeping the service levels the same. So as we depleted those reserves, we started to get closer to a decision of what are we going to do. And Councilor Nolan, who is here, led a great conversation about this, and I think you for doing that with our cities and counties about how should Metro look at raising rates. And the basic decision, and I wouldn't say recommendation, but kind of consensus of the group, was a cost recovery. That we shouldn't put ourselves in a position where we have to go into the reserves. So what we've been trying to do is slowly make our way through that COVID moment where we pulled everything back. But we did something even greater as a council. And when I first got on Metro Council, there were three of us that were new. And there was a new waste management plan that we adopted the first week, not knowing totally the history or what was in there. And we've actually taken a little bit of a right-hand turn. We were headed in a direction to actually do much more as Metro and less with the private sector. Right now, 40% of the waste comes to Metro and 60% goes to the private sector. We're looking at a much different split as we move into the future on some of the waste flow so that we can keep costs down and still serve the region and keep businesses alive here in this region that are small businesses that we want to see grow. So we're trying to figure out how to cut costs and how to set rates in a way that makes sense for this region and be much more transparent about it. And I think we've done that.
I asked a Washington County-centric question and a downtown question, but this one comes from our friends at the Gresham Outlook. They want to know what the status of the 40-mile loop trail in East County. What is the status of it? Does Metro bring to the project? What does Metro bring to the project? And is there an estimation for when the connectors will be completed for that 40-mile loop trail?
That would be a good question for somebody on the 40-mile loop trail board. We obviously participate in projects that the jurisdictions bring forward with, they want federal money. And Councilor Gonzalez is our JPAC chair, our Joint Policy Advisory Committee on Transportation that allocates out the federal funds that can be used for trails. And so I know that pieces of it have been funded through that. But a date? That's a good question for them.
Got it.
Sorry.
No, not at all, not at all. And finally, you can't run again for Metro. You're term
Nope.
limited, and you're in year 7 of 8. What is that one big thing on your to-do list that you would really like to get done in the next year?
If it were possible, which it's not, bring back transportation measure. That was one of the reasons I really wanted to be in this position. Putting a transportation ballot measure on at the beginning of COVID probably could have been done better. We didn't have any congestion. There was no reason to vote for a transportation measure. But now we see how necessary it is. And every other region that has had difficulty with COVID, economic conditions, is investing in themselves. And I would like to see us have that conversation again.
That was a tough one.
That was a tough one.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Those were the questions for the president of Metro. Can we give her a round of applause? And we need to invite back up onto the stage then John Stride. I think, John, this is your moment.
This concludes our program for this morning. Thank you so much for joining us, and special thanks to President Peterson and Moderator Dana Haynes for their presentation. We also want to give another shout out to our sponsors, AARP Oregon and Fight Against Sex Trafficking, and also for the Oregon Zoo for hosting us here today and all the staff that worked so hard to put this event on. Let me give you one more pitch for joining City Club so you can be part of organizing these kinds of events. If you reach over on your table, you'll find a card, and it will give you all the information you need. Again, have a good day.